After the recent news on New York's push to put a soda ban into regulation, which was denied, confusion tends to follow, leaving people questioning why. Why the push to ban products that may be of a concern for our health? Much like the soda ban, this also happened after the push to ban trans fats in 2006, which ended up requiring all companies to label trans fats on their products over 0.5 grams, which convinced many to avoid trans fats and fats altogether. Because of all the results from research given linking trans fat to cardiovascular disease, a buildup of fat in blood vessels causing the heart to pump harder, leading to heart attacks and other problems, shoppers buy their trans fat-free food with no more information than trans fat is bad because it causes heart problems. But what are they? This is you. No, not you. You, way deep inside, beyond the skin and the insides, down to the depths of the blood vessels, all the way down to the cell membrane of the red blood cells. There you are, a little lipid, a tiny structure that contains a little head that likes water and limbs that repel it. Mirroring under you and around you are more lipid neighbors that create a membrane layer with hydrophilic, water-loving heads, and hydrophobic, water-fearing limbs that keep liquids in the cell and other liquids out. If a red blood cell was a soccer field, you might be one tiny blade of grass. A lipid, which is a structure that simply doesn't dissolve in water, is what is commonly referred to as fat. But what is commonly thought of as fats are not the only lipids. Rose Martin, a senior lecturer in the Food Science and Human Nutrition Department at Iowa State, says that lipids are also a part of hormones, steroids, cell membranes like you, and oils. They are all structures that provide important roles in normal body development and function, such as absorbing vitamins. Some of those structures also include unsaturated fats, saturated fats, and big, bad trans fats. Since 2006, law requires all labeling to include trans fat contents. The number shown gives a guarantee, but the 0 might mean anything less than 0.5 grams, which is okay to say under the requirement standards. Trans fats exist in the first place because they are useful in food production for their greater stability, longer shelf life, and lower monetary cost, but all at the risk of human health. It turns an oil into a spread that can sit out on a shelf for a lot longer time, cooking food a lot better, and is overall cheaper by this process called hydrogenation. Hydrogenation. Now that's kind of a big word for a little lipid. However, Rose Martin explains that hydrogenation is just the process of adding more hydrogen to a compound. With unsaturated fats, what hydrogenation does is breaks the double bonds, or the kinks in your limbs, that hold the compound together. It makes more room for hydrogen, adds them, which straightens the limbs out, straight as a stick. Straight-chain lipids then, without those double bonds or kinks in your limb, pack together flat with their neighbors and are solid at room temperature. These are called saturated fats. Double-bonded kinked limbs can't lay flat, so they are liquid at room temperature. This is the difference between oil, like olive oil, and butter. If the hydrogenation process is completed, you'll have saturated limbs. But usually what happens is partial hydrogenation. This means that a trans fat has been formed and there is no kink, but there is still that double bond on the limbs, and the limbs are twisted. All of these small differences add up with how the human body uses these lipids. When it comes to red blood cell membranes, if the diet consists of trans fats, when the body reuses the lipids after eating them or consumption, there will be a direct impact on the structure of those cell membranes. The more trans and saturated fats, the less flexible your red blood cell membranes will be, and the more sticky they will be too, causing improper nutrient transportation and blood clotting. Trans fats are worse than saturated fats because though they physically act like saturated fats, they don't work in the body the same. According to the FDA, trans fats, though they have similar physical properties as saturated fat, raise your blood cholesterol, your bad cholesterol, which limits your body's ability to use and dispose of fat. It also decreases your good cholesterol that is used to take lipids to the liver to be processed. Having low good cholesterol and high bad cholesterol is going to make your blood vessels rigid, not flexible, and cause plaque to build up. Saturated doesn't have those same effects on bad cholesterol, so it is viewed a little higher, but still should be avoided according to both the FDA and Rose Martin. According to a study done by Lee Hooper, PhD, relating dietary fat to cardiovascular disease, in 2011, reducing saturated fat in the diet reduced risk of cardiovascular disease by 14% in 6 months. Rose Martin suggests to use less saturated and no trans fat in the diet, but this can be really hard to do. When comparing butter to margarine, a vital component to cooking and baking, butter may have more saturated fat than margarine, but the trans fat in margarine is almost 10 times the amount than in butter. In 2, 3, or 10 years, if I take a look at the cell membranes of your red blood cells, I could tell what has been in your diet, says Rose Martin. The effect of eating trans and saturated fats can be long-lasting and impacting. Martin suggests to always read the label. She says, a common misconception is how this impacts calorie intake. You can consume the same amount of calories in trans fat-free diet and have the same energy, but less benefits with a diet with trans fat. It's not about the calories to be healthy, Martin suggests. It's about the fat. She says, we are not what we eat, but one exception, and that exception is fat. The CDC suggests to keep bad cholesterol lower and to be healthier, have a blood test every 5 years. Eat healthy, maintain a healthy weight, exercise regularly, don't smoke, which damages blood vessels more, and treat high cholesterol. Both Rose Martin and the FDA suggest to eat healthier, cook with liquid oils higher in monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats, like olive oil, instead of solids like shortening, lard, or butter. Some unsaturated fats will promote good cholesterol, so consuming those kinds of lipids is vital to the proper function of the body. While banning all foods with trans fat would also mean banning foods with small natural trans fats, eliminating some of our main nutrient resources, which 2 states have done in the United States for processed products, which would be California and New York. Requiring labeling is an important step to helping people choose the right foods to eat. Understanding what the label means and what trans fats does to your body will help develop a more conscious public about how eating processed and partially hydrogenated oils will make, even with a small amount, such a large impact, even for just a tiny little lipid.